Kia ora, good evening. It is 13th of November 2025, and I've just done a short presentation with a research project I'm part of and thought I would redo the presentation for my YouTube channel. This is something I've been meaning to do for a while now, is a little overview of nature communication and my practice. And so I was asked to talk about nature communication specifically with soil this evening. So this goes off in a few different directions, but that was the intention. So this is not the full scope of the nature communication work, but here's where I began by positioning my studies within the training that's offered by Saskia von Diest of Ecofluency. I first came across her work in 2021 at the International Biodynamic Research Conference, signed up for her 6-week course. Halfway through it, second week, it got super magical. And I realized that I wanted to repeat the 6-week course and go deeper from the beginning. So I did that, 2 rounds of that 6-week program, and then had some one-on-one sessions with her. Basically said, I want to learn from you, teach me how to become a nature communicator. And over the last 4 years, I've stayed in touch with her to deepen the practice, expand the skills, and just check in anytime I felt like I needed validation or verification, or if there was something I knew that I wasn't quite reading correctly. So Saskia has written a chapter within this academic work, Subtle Agroecologies, Farming with the Hidden Half of Nature, edited by Julia Wright. Saskia's chapter was Intuitive Farming, Heart-Based Decisions for Harmony in Agricultural Ecosystems. And I'm pretty sure the entire book, Subtle Agroecologies, is open access. You can go find it online and read up. Amazing contributions from all sorts of fields. So next up was, where won't the page turn? Okay, this is the 9-step process for nature communication that I was taught and I've been using, and it is only 4 years. It's very, very early stages in my practice, and I am still, at this point, careful who I share this work with. So the 9 steps: number 1, to set the intention. Why am I tuning in with an aspect of nature? Secondly, to create the energetic safety. And for me, that is calling in specific guides that help me not just stay safe, but offer guidance. So within anthroposophical work, I've always felt an affinity with Archangel Michael. So there's the 4 archangels that I call in, and then the 4 directions, 4 elements. And I've also done ancestral lineage healing studies. So there's a specific line of grandfathers and a specific line of grandmothers that I bring into this work with me regularly. Sometimes I'll name Borage or Harakeke or other kind of higher beings that are particularly relevant for the questions that I'm bringing to that specific session. Step 3 is opening or dialing or tuning in. I love how Saskia teaches that, if you want to get in touch with someone, back in the day, we would pick up the phone and dial the number, and you know when they've picked up the other end. Or these days, it's tuning into a Zoom call. You follow the Zoom link and wait until the connection is established. Step 4 is greeting. Step 5, permission. Step 6, dialogue. And step 6 is often the longest period of time, although it can be quite quick to kind of pop in and pop out and get the next step of whatever work is happening. But yeah, definitely sort of on reflection, that dialogue feels like the meat in the sandwich, and the the material that I take to my clients. So then step 7, expressing gratitude. Step 8, close the greeting, cleanse the space, kind of wind everything down, release the guides, like thank you for being here. And then step 9, to integrate. And the integration often is sitting in reflection, maybe reading back over my notes of previous nature communication sessions with that same landscape or plant or question. Sometimes it'll be getting my diary out and making some notes of specific actions that have come out of the session. I'm trying to think what else is there. Sometimes there's some research that needs to be done, a random, not random, but an unexpected sort of piece of the jigsaw puzzle will come through, and I'm hopping on the internet to do some research and like, really? Is this the plant I need to use for this particular task? I suspect I have clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, that on occasion there'll be a piece of music come through that I go look up that piece of music. If it's a song, I'll look at the lyrics, I'll look at what the meaning is for that specific piece of music in connection with the questions they have. So yeah, that's basically it. And then next thing I did was gave an example of just one story of how I use nature communication. This is a little house where I lived for, I think it was about 6 months. I called it Raspberry Lane. Planted a row of raspberries, and it was going to kind of tap into childhood memories of going raspberry picking, and just raspberries are one of my favorite foods. That, when you live in a small home with a small garden, you can't grow everything, that I decided I was going to grow raspberries here. So it was a suburb in West Auckland that not a tiny house, but the little house was 2 shipping containers that are like an open plan, fully self-contained home. So there was a real kitchen, a real bathroom, and ample space for me. I was a brand new empty nester. I had moved out of the home in Titirangi where I lived for 10 years. And so this was house move number 2, I think. So I was here as well as living in Tuakau in the countryside. So it was kind of 1 week in the city, 1 week in Tuakau, popping backwards and forwards. Sometimes it was 3 days off, 3 days on. Anyway, I was the first tenant in this home, and when I moved here, the picture at the bottom left, you can see what the garden looked like, just a jungle. It was overgrown. There were some really beautiful compost, like concrete block 3-bay system, that it was just perfect for a compost coach to move into the sort of back section of a home that had this compost system already there. I joked with the landlord. He was offering to dismantle the compost, like it wasn't something you'd want sort of off the back of your porch area. And I said, no, actually it is. This is the perfect thing to have in a teaching garden. So this is where I was living when I first heard of Saskia's work. This is where I attended the online International Biodynamic Research Conference. It was during the pandemic. So yeah, this was the soil I first talked to. These were the trees that I first talked with. There was a great big cedar tree here that was towering over. The grapefruit tree. Gosh, where's the grapefruit tree? It was all tangled up on this fence. And you can see there with the fence gone, the grapefruit tree was the star of the show. So the first few weeks I went exploring into that jungle, and what a joy to find this wall made with the rocks that this obviously this garden had been very well cared for at some point. And so cleared all the weeds, composted them, turned them into soil, grew seedlings, and um, it was a really interesting feeling, like the living in part time in the countryside and then coming here to West Auckland where I had work in the city. That this was almost like a playhouse kind of a feel, like this tiny little cute brand new home with the tiny little fridge, the like bright red splashback in the kitchen, and it was just all so compact and cozy. I've just loved it. Um, but I was curious about who had built this wall. And so, talking with other neighbours on the street, I managed to track down the original homeowner and connected them with my landlord, the current owner of the house. And they came out and brought him the house plans, and just it it's just such a delight to see these photos. This spot where the playhouse is where the playhouse was. And you can see the swimming pool was removed, but this retaining wall was still there. And there's more to this story that I won't share today, but this to me felt like an example of the soil itself, the landscape, the spirit of place, using me to connect the dots across time to bring previous owners and the current owner together, and something about the this house now being bigger and a real house making sense to me as the tenant, but also making sense to the homeowner. So, other themes that come up in the nature communication work. So, Raspberry Lane was, so I can't see what I've got written under there. Home gardens as an extension of our homes, and the garden holds memories, and yeah, I won't say any more about that. The next theme, Manukau Harbour. So I read a newspaper article about how the growers in the Pukekohe area, the excess use of nitrate fertilizers is leaching down into groundwater, which flows out into the harbour. The water is polluted. It's not a good situation at all. And so tuning into the groundwater and the soil and like asking a question of like, how bad is it? What does it feel like? Just to feel the ground resisting those chemicals, almost kind of pushing them up energetically, and this request that humans pull from above ground, that we can draw them back up. And so did some research, and plantain and endive are two plants that draw the nitrates up out of the soil. Next theme that's sort of come through in the nature communication work is the presence of cedar trees. Almost everywhere I go, there's another cedar tree. So Raspberry Lane, there was a great big cedar there that when I had one of my one-on-one sessions with Saskia, she sort of let me know that the cedar tree in that property was like a, not so much a guardian, but that I was its pet human, and that I was able to call on the network of cedar trees for assistance or to guide my work. And so as I was driving backwards and forwards from Tuakau in Auckland, you can see the dots on this map. Each one of those dots is a special cedar tree that, yeah, I just got in the habit of pulling over and popping them on a map. They've now got 229 cedar trees mapped throughout New Zealand. When I go on a road trip, then yeah, it's nice to think of them kind of watching over me and connecting and talking with each other. Tomatoes. I worked in a commercial tomato growing business for 6 months, and the 5-hour shifts were like a meditation with tomatoes, and got to know the spirit of the tomato plant. Went and did a whole heap of research, like how did we ever put tomatoes into greenhouses, and what yeah, I won't say too much there, but just that the plants themselves would far rather be connected with the soil. And failing that, the tomato plants in a hydroponic system, if we can get the foliage and the spent vines into composting, at least at the end of their life, the plants can return to the earth rather than landfill. And I know technically landfill is the earth, but it's different to composting them in a way that they can be useful for growing other food. Next up, the harakeke. The entire plant is a taonga. Like even for weavers, there is a way of composting our weaving scraps, and being able to sort of communicate with the harakeke to ask for guidance on the best way of doing that has been just an utter joy. Such a fun part of the weaving that I'm doing. Next, the worms. Message from the worms is that when we have them in plastic boxes above ground, like the commercial worm farms that are separated from the earth, it's confusing them that they belong in the ground. And so I saw a phrase last week that talked about free range worm farms, that getting the worms in contact with the soil, with the ground, would improve their quality of life. And then Hineahuone, who is the deity of the soil. Within Māori culture, I've sort of coming out of Huapara Kore studies, has been this question: how do we elevate the mana of Hineahuone? And so occasionally when there is a soil related question, I will ask for Hineahuone to share any insights. And on the particular day, I was looking at indoor composting. So on the one hand, the worms want to be in contact with the ground, but there was this other question of, well, can we compost in apartments and on balconies and indoors? And I was trying a few things and it was working, but I was unsure, like, how does Hineahuone feel about it? And she gave her I don't want to say approval, but sort of an enthusiastic, yes, I want to help. Yes, it's okay to bring me inside. Yes, I want to be in relationship with humans and active in the composting from the moment a piece of food is deemed to be a scrap. Let's mix it with soil and start the composting, even in a plastic bucket inside. Okay, what's the next slide I shared? Turning the page, turning the page. So this is a project that I've just started working on. It's the old Kohanga Reo Māori Language Immersion School in Tuakau at Ngā Tai e Rua Pā. And we've got composting project happening with food scraps that when we did a site visit, I asked if I could focus on this space and plant up rongoa herbs and have this be a sort of a living medicine cabinet, if you like, where this area is now part of what they call the Hauora Hub. There are rongoa and miri sessions happening in a little building just up the steps here. And so all of what's been composted here was a pile of green waste. It looked like it was just being stacked, ready to take off to the dump. And so we began with that as the first compost piles. The edges of these beds were ponga logs that had been stacked. And so I suggested we create the initial sort of shape of garden beds that will eventually, this whole area will hopefully just be all medicinal plants. And so I haven't yet done a nature communication session with the space. I'm waiting to work with the rongoa practitioners. So this is a sort of a superficial compost consultant. Here's a quick practical solution that will cost nothing, save money removing things, and how can we use the vegetation that's on site to build soil fertility. So watch the space. There will be more developments in here. And the final question I posed to the group tonight was, is composting a genetic trait? So I recently went to the UK to attend the International Biodynamic Research Conference, and traveling to the other side of the world is a question of how do I make best use of this time, that I reached out to my uncle Gerald, who's a family historian. And as I've been studying my ancestry, my whakapapa, as part of the ancestral lineage healing work, we arranged for, I think it was 5 days I spent with them at the end of my trip. So two of my cousins, Sophie and Michael, are professional gardeners, amazing composters, that it just like, is there a gene that we share in common? Like, yeah, just posing that question. Uncle Gerald gave me this book the day that I left, written by one of my relatives. At some point, I'll pull up the family tree and get more exact information. But I think from memory, it's my great grandfather's sister's daughter or granddaughter, Hilda Hine. So she was an economist and wrote a book on the sixth sense. So can't help but wonder if intuition is part of the wolf family genetic makeup. So yeah, I'm going to stop recording there. And it's just a little summary of how I use nature communication in my work.